Go. Facebook Live, broadcast. Cool. So what you'll see now at the bottom, Mike, you'll probably see the participant numbers start to shoot up. Yeah.
Sorry, didn't catch that.
You'll see at the bottom of the screen, you've got the participants number bit. It's at 4, and it'll increase as people start to click the link and zoom in. Hi, Rachel. So you just give them a minute to come in. Hi, Michael. Welcome, welcome. It's a nice and sunny afternoon. Absolutely boiling.
Yeah, isn't it?
How have you found lockdown, Mike?
Interesting. You know, actually slowing down in some areas, spending time with the family has actually helped with, I guess, looking at what our priorities are, you know, and doing a lot less rushing around. I'm still busy with work. I've got plenty of work to do, but a lot less rushing around trying to get from A to B, which is actually really good for us anyway. We very much like that. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. You have much time with the family. Well, obviously, you have time with the family, but in useful time.
Yeah, and spending time either working or doing a little bit of tutoring for our son, that kind of thing. Getting out for walks and all that kind of stuff. You know, good.
Cool. So
couldn't have made a better scenario, really.
Yeah, exactly. No excuse. Afternoon, Chris.
Yeah.
Cool. I think they're all kind of tuning in now, so maybe we'll make a start. Thank you, delegates, attendees, and thank you, Mike, for giving your time this afternoon.
You're welcome.
Quick introduction from myself, and then I'll introduce Mike. I'm Chris Morris, the co-founder of Shoe Social Media and Digital U. The event itself has been running, well, what will be its third year in a row now. For obvious reasons, we can't do it live, so we've basically had to go online and utilise Zoom, which everyone seems to be zooming around at the moment. So that's good fun. But the whole premise of Digital U has always been to help businesses and people in business transition into an ever-increasing online world by educating and inspiring them to do better and do more. So we've reached out to our connections over the week-long series of webinars, and Mike has volunteered his time to come across this afternoon and share some expert tips. And I love his title, Grab them by the eyeballs. So I'm going to hand over now. If you've got any questions, you won't be able to, like a traditional Zoom meeting, share the screen and whatnot, but please do ask questions, stick them in the chat or the Q&A section. We'll have time at the end. Please do feel free to ask. Last bit of housekeeping for me. If you've not grabbed the Digital U ebook, I will put that in the chat now. Failing that, we can crack on. So that is in there. Mike, I'm going to hand you the power. You now have the power.
All right. Wow.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so many things I can do now. Wow. Okay, so I'm Mike. I run Apogee. I'm the creator and leader of our little companies. It's mainly just me, but Apogee is the company through which I make effective images for our brands and marketing. So I'm going to go straight into my slides. So I'm going to attempt to screen share. One moment. Okay, right. And is it working? Nope, not yet. Oh dear. Bear with me while I try and figure this out. Here we go. It worked earlier seamlessly. Here we go. Right. So yeah. So thinking about what to say today, I was reminded of a conversation I had with a friend who was asking about what I do. I mentioned the word illustration somewhere in my reply, and he seemed to think I did pictures for children's books. No, I said I create images for the business world. Oh, he said, you do clip art. No, that didn't make me happy either, and it wasn't progressing his understanding of the value of what I do. So I can see from our conversation that it'd be unfair to be upset that what I do isn't broadly understood. Ironic that a visual medium is so invisible, perhaps. I think it's because illustration is usually a component to something rather than the main thing itself. which is the sort of thing that we all overlook unless we're doing it ourselves. So I'll briefly talk about what it is, what it's for, but also hope to show you the real power that you can unlock from the image. So I'll be explaining how to grab your audience by the eyeballs. Increase your impact when using images, inclination, how to engage both the heart and the head of your audience, and impression, what makes an effective illustration. Me and that friend do still speak to each other, by the way. Right, so increase your impact when using images. What is illustration? It's not character in a logo. It's not graphic style. It isn't just for children's books, and it is not clip art. It's visual imagery that conveys the meaning behind what is being communicated, or expands on that meaning. Illustration can accompany text, and it visually explains a concept or process. It helps us go beyond words towards understanding. It's a powerful tool in marketing that sometimes affects and shapes the culture around us. Illustration, when used for the service industry can be used to get across processes that may be otherwise difficult to explain quickly or in an interesting way. Some of my own work includes what can be called illustrated brands. Here's a web concept for a business network called clipart. And in this one, this is for marketing material for an IT services company that I've been working on the identity of. So illustrations sit at the intersection between art, design, and communications. Images bypass the need to both read and comprehend by tapping directly into the parts of the brain that understand. A recent study found that people are 323% better at following directions with illustrations as opposed to without. That can have a huge impact on what you're trying to say. They also convey information faster. An MIT study discovered that the human brain can process images in as little as 13 milliseconds, just over 100th of a second. In fact, not only are our brains trained from birth to help us make sense of the world around us, the retina, the part of the eye through which we see, is itself brain tissue. Our eyes are thinking to our brains. Now, while faster reading and processing is great for getting people to absorb your content faster, faster isn't always better. The reader could very well skim over your most important advice. Again, the image can play its part here by getting the viewer to stop in one place for longer. This is called leading the eye, and can be used to direct attention to specific information and increase the overall dwell time on your content. I'll cover more about how to do that later. And another stat, a marketing study found that Facebook posts with images see 2.3 times more engagement than those without. We are much more likely to stop and look when images are involved. But once you are directly influencing your audience, this is follow-on into your engagement, educating, and sales. So, inclination, how to engage both the heart and the head of your audience. The head aspect of reaching people is knowing what your goals are, who you are trying to reach, and what you want them to do. The heart is about how you engage with people. You'll have an idea of the sorts of people you are trying to reach, so the next step is to think about what sort of things that they like, such as lifestyles, interests, aspirations. This can be researched, of course, but if you have been running your business for any length of time, your best guess will likely suffice. This will inform your how. How do I get the attention of these particular people? You can get their attention with both the type and style of illustration you can use. Figurative illustration is some form of direct portrayal or derived from something of the real world. Abstract illustration is something more conceptual, using visual elements for the representation of ideas. There is, of course, crossover between the two forms of illustration, but knowing who you are aiming at can inform what type of may make the best selection. Some combination of the two can be impactful to get ideas across, and knowing what your people want also affects the style of the depiction. For example, you don't want rainbow colours and sparkles for your car enthusiasts. Image style is very important in conveying the feelings that you would like to get across. So think of the change that emoji is going to have on the content of written copy. Simple text can be transformed by simple text can be transformed in character by a circle with a smiley face. This is more about the feeling that you're trying to inspire. Currently working with these guys, Enigma Ventures. So they are a purpose-driven investment fund. And their current project calls for illustration, some of which you can see here. The aim of Enigma Ventures field by both drawing in capital investment into the Southern Africa region and specifically supporting women-led businesses. The illustrations needed to speak of the specific strengths of women, shown with the bold graphics of the brand. The hand-drawn line illustrations convey strength with gentleness. Another example, I've not worked with these guys, but there's a company, Casper, known for their mattresses, a company that makes good use of illustration. Their primary line is mattresses, but they're pitching themselves as leaders in the sleep market as a retailer of good sleep lifestyle products. As you would expect, this market is saturated with photos of people on mattresses. So Casper chose illustration for their communications in order to stand out. They used it to launch the brand, for key visuals, and for their online posts. As you can probably already tell from the image style shown, their market is the younger net native worker who's used to buying stuff online. The type of illustration is figurative with a whimsical aspect. The depictions are edging into fantasy, mixing the real with the unreal, in which they are inviting conversation beyond the practical aspects of a better mattress. I believe these almost surreal portrayals are saying that by using Casper mattresses, you have a ticket to dreamland. In style, the line work is light and clear, and of course their brand colours are used. Lots of round edges give this a soft feel which appropriately affects what they're trying to say about their product. So not pictures of mattresses per se in these examples. When you go to their website, you will see product photos which make sense there, but they have used illustration to describe the feeling that they want you to have about their products. To show the effects of illustration on the feel of the brand, I've played with this advert that's seen at the top here. And below, I've stripped out the illustration and replaced it with a generic photo type of advert. Nothing generally wrong with the rework. The photo more directly depicts what a mattress does, but would it stand out against similar marketing? The illustrations, I think, were communicating so much more than can be said in a photo like this. So selecting the appropriate type of illustration and image style will make what you are trying to say more accessible to the people you're wanting to reach. And this is more important than ever. Like this conference, so much what we do is shifting to being presented online, and imagery that speaks to your segment will be a key factor. So, impression, what makes an effective illustration? How illustration can convey information is a pretty big subject. So I'll pick just one area, which is composition. Composition is the art of framing and pointing to the important bits. We've got Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam. And here we see masterful use of composition. We've got the two realms, which are clearly divided, joined by a connection of the fingers literally pointing at each other. Adam on his back in a passive pose, and his finger is mirroring God's reach, while God is leaning forward towards and out to reach Adam. And this tells us about this tells us that the piece is about God's efforts to give life to mankind. This example is for the meditation app Headspace. It's a lot simpler, but the same principles apply. The character with the headphones on is front and center. He's larger in proportion to the others, and on the bottom frame line, putting him in outer space. We're meant to notice this guy, and the rest of the image serves as his environment. Him being in the center also handily draws you in to the call to action buttons, where you can experience the bliss he is enjoying. Final example I'll use is this artwork that I've been working on. It's not for anything in particular yet, other than because I love making these and I always learn new things doing it. I've used a mix of 3D modeling, photo bashing, and digital painting. And my aim with the piece was to use composition to tell a story. My intention was to lead the viewer's eye from the bottom of the frame to the figure, who is one of the focal points of the piece. To help bring the viewer's eye in, I made him stand out in contrast to the background, and he's carrying a pink backpack which acts like a beacon against the more drab colours. From there we might look just above the character's head to the large building. This has a deliberate bright area in which the viewer can dwell, and the sun rays then lead towards the aircraft, whose direction then points back down into the city. The other entry point into the frame are the aircraft contrails, which are pointing at the city. And they serve much the same purpose, to lead the viewer's eye in, and from there move about the image. Overall, the artwork is about a journey towards hope. The figure is transitioning from a harsh environment towards a much improved one ahead. He started it in an environment with jagged rocks designed to make us feel uncomfortable. This area is darker and uses more blue tones, which give a colder feel. The space ahead includes the brighter, warmer tones of the city ahead. The city itself includes sweeping, confident shapes that make a statement in contrast to the chaos in the landscape. So this image, rather than having a call to action, is about keeping the eye moving within the frame and telling a story in the process. Composition applies to all visual media. Next time you're watching your favourite TV programme, see if you can spot where the director is trying to lead your eyes to tell the story. So placing elements in particular places and orientations shapes how we read images, which in turn can drive our reactions. I hope you enjoyed this short encounter with illustration and what it can do. Here are some of the things we covered about how to grab the eyeballs of your audience. So number one, illustration and imagery will increase the impact of your communications. Two, the right sort of imagery can convey both the information and the feeling you would like associated with it. Three, good composition drives the audience where you want them. I found a statistic that gave me a challenge that when people hear information, such as in a seminar like this, they're likely to remember only 10% of that information 3 days later. However, if that information is given with a related image, people retain 65% of the information 3 days later. This means illustration can have a 5-fold increase in how likely it is that people will remember your brand or your specific call to action in your marketing message. Maybe I should call you all up in 3 days and see if you've remembered everything. So hopefully you remember this one. If you remember nothing else, I'd like to at least come away knowing that illustration, for all its types and styles, is about visually conveying ideas. And at the very least, I hope that you're a little more informed than my friend was about illustration. So anyway, thank you for listening to me for a bit. Happy to take questions. I am offering free consultations. Chris has mentioned, I think, about how we can help at this time. I'd also love to know what one thing you might have learned and are going to take away from this talk. So back to you, Chris.
Yeah, brilliant. So, guys in the chat, if you've got any questions, please fire them away in the Q&A or the chat section. I'll kick us off. So I wrote a few down here. I'm not posting it while you were chatting away, Mike. Love the idea of, and so you just reinforced for I'm doing my webinar at 4 o'clock, quick plug there. But you can't see, but behind me where I'm pointing on the screen, I'm doing a whiteboard presentation and I'm actually making use of illustrations. So I'm glad you picked up on that 63 memory. It was exact. Didn't notice
Mhm.
that. I knew people did. That's a good point. My question, I suppose, well, flowing in, storytelling through imagery. How am I, if I'm a business sat there thinking I've got a brand, I've got a logo, I'm not quite sure, I've got a story to tell. How might you advise getting started to bring that out and then obviously start bringing it through illustration and image? I suppose.
Well, I guess I would start with some of the non-visual elements of that. So, what story are you wanting to tell? What's the most impactful thing about your business? It could be something in your journey. It could be something. It could be like your company timeline. It could say something unique about you. It could be that there's a testimonial which is really striking. These are all things which can then be illustrated. It doesn't have to be just text. You can really engage people with the visual element. So I'd think about the story that you want to tell first, and then it can be illustrated. Then the fun begins.
That leads me on nicely to the second question. I preempted that one. So I suppose obviously you've got the brief, you've got the starting point. Where would you then, as in you, Mike, where would you get your inspiration from to then bring this life? You've got the idea, you've got the brief, you've got testimonial. This is what we want to try and achieve, but then you've got to go away and turn it into something. Where would you kind of go from there?
I think about what would be brand appropriate. Be like Enigma Ventures, that you saw those examples of the orange line work that I did for those guys. They needed, I determined really that they needed imagery of women doing business, and particularly African women, because of the region and where they're operating, and you generally don't find that in stock imagery. When I did their initial branding, I did have a good look, and there's some reasonable images, but there isn't many. I've got to tell you, there isn't many, and I wanted to expand on this is what we're about, this is who we're supporting, this is the direction that we're taking business in this area, and the drawings helped also convey the feeling that we wanted to get across as well. It's not just about people in business suits. It's about really encouraging people. It's about real support. As I said, gentleness and strength combined, that kind of thing. But other businesses have different requirements. It could be that there might be more of a cinematic style that's required. They might have something that's actually quite dramatic that they want to get across. So I really just have to think about what might be appropriate for what they're trying to say.
Excellent. We've got two questions that follow on from that, I suppose. First one being tools and software to kind of bring that concept to life. Any tips on how to, if you're thinking about maybe doing it yourself and having a go, I suppose?
Okay. Golly, how long have you got? There's so many. There's so much.
Top three.
Top three. All right. Well, my starting point always is pen and paper. Doesn't matter what I'm actually going to be using to finally present something. If I don't draw it out first, I'm not. The sketches are really for me, but if I don't do it, I'm not communicating to myself what it should look like. And I've attempted. Well, I usually stupidly attempt to make a digital graphic, without doing that. And when I do that, it's awful. But when I sketch it out, I've heard other artists talk about it. It's like a magic trick. If you can jot it out, pen and paper, then you'll have the concept, and then you have to bring it to life in whatever software you choose. In terms of the actual software, myself, I use Adobe Suite, so I've got Illustrator, Photoshop. I've also started using Procreate on my tablet a fair bit. Some really good painting tools on that. What else? There's Affinity software. Yeah. Procreate. Yeah. I mean, for me, I'd say the Adobe Suite have the broadest range of tools. They've been around a long time. They've been doing this a long time. But I appreciate that means that there's a bit of a learning curve attached to that. So try things, try to see what works for you. I also use a lot of 3D at the moment as well. Where you saw on my slides, I used 3D graphics to create those. Really handy for bringing concepts to life. But again, big learning curve to get all that sorted out as well. Happy to talk more specifics with that questioner. Who is that? That was
yeah. So if you've got any follow up to that, Rachel, please just obviously email Mike. You've got his email address there. And then we suppose we've got 2 final questions. We've got 3 minutes to kind of cap it off. So the next one again follows on nicely. Which businesses have more successfully used imagery of the nature you have talked about? So what types of businesses? Who does it work well for? Is it B2C,
okay,
B2B?
So you've got Canva, obviously, that I gave an example of. There's also on top of my head is Mailchimp. So they've got their monkey in their branding, but also they've got a broader range of illustrations that they use throughout their web service and their marketing and stuff. And they just make it fun. They just make it fun. Writing emails for content and stuff like that isn't always the most fun thing, but at least hitting the go button, you get some playful graphics happening, and it just it makes you want to use their service above someone else who just doesn't really do any of that. So I'd say that was a success.
Question for that. Oh. Can you think of any, I suppose, just to bring it a little bit closer to home, can you think of any Yorkshire-based businesses that have done a really, really good job? Not necessarily that you've worked with, but you really think, actually, these guys have had a really good attempt at this. Can you think of any to hand? And I'm putting you on the spot there. But
I know that they exist. I'll put it that way. So, I mean, I do illustration for brands in the area. Brand design and illustration for businesses locally, but also I've seen great work by what you could call competitor businesses or collaborators, if you like. I can think of iMedia. I can't think of the companies that they've done work for. I can just think of the companies that do them.
Don't plug them. Don't plug them on Earth. Plug them. It's all about you.
I know, it's awful. Yeah, no, it's bad, isn't it? But it is used. It is used effectively. I can think of like there's more recent pub rebrands and stuff like that. They tend to get in on illustration and stuff. It's quite good effect. Not just their pub sign, but throughout the market. If they know what they're doing, I've seen some good examples.
Thank you. And then just to finish off, the final question, some feedback. That was a really interesting presentation, some lovely designs there. And then the 2 questions. What's been the most enjoyable project you've worked on and why?
Right.
Followed by, similarly, let me pronounce that. What was the project you found most challenging? So best one you've worked on and why, and most challenging.
Wow.
Big question.
Wow, golly.
To finish it off.
Yeah. I think one of my most favourite ones is probably one I did quite early on, actually, in my creative professional journey, and that was doing a book cover for a fantasy book. you could probably tell from the artwork that I did that I'm quite into doing imaginative pieces and stuff, and that kind of stuff suits like book covers, movie posters, concept art, whatever. So doing that and getting paid for it was a real joy. A really good time to work with a writer, just working out how to visualize her words and stuff. That was really good. And what was my
sorry, Mike? I've got same question as Rachel. Which book was that again? Sorry, I think we're trying to look on the internet to find it.
Oh right, oh golly. So it's called The Book Beyond Time. I mean, it's quite old now actually, but yeah, I think it was like 2011. So it was quite a while ago.
Cool.
I've had plenty of really enjoyable projects since, so it's just one that stands out to me.
That the book by A.M. Carter? That the one?
Yeah, that's the one.
Cool,
yeah.
Found it. I'll drop the link in the chat for those interested. I'm curious because I love your futuristic pieces. I've always said that. Yeah, I'll drop the link in.
Cool. And part two of that question was most challenging. Challenging, golly. I think for me, one of the big challenges for any creative project is where you do loads of work and the client doesn't really like it, but they don't really give you much feedback as to why. I think that's that's always a big thing. I think it's the same for most service companies. Though it's when you've produced something the client doesn't want, great, but you need to get to what they do want, and that's okay. I don't actually mind readdressing it, but the hard part is actually getting to what they are actually wanting, and then because I have ideas about what their clients and their audience might actually want to look at, but they often might have different ideas about that. So I would say the bigger challenge is just the working out really. Yeah.
The full illustration link on your website.
Oh, great! Yeah.
Website, Mike.
Brilliant. Oh, that was very
massive file. But, yeah.
Wow.
See? The purpose of our dual screens. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, we digress. We can chat about it later. Cool. Is there any closing statements from you? Anything to finish off with? Thank you to attendees. Anything from you, Mike, just to close out?
Thanks you guys for being here. It's a lovely day outside, so thank you for spending it with us streaming inside. So
yes, no, brilliant. Good. Some really good feedback in the chat. You can see that, Mike, as well. So thank you, attendees and delegates. And just to quickly plug the rest of the stuff, I'm up next at 4 o'clock. So I'm going to be talking about the Facebook and how to build Facebook funnels and systems that generate leads for your business. So that's me at 4. I'm going to cool down in the meantime, maybe grab some ice cream and a glass of juice or something. And then tomorrow we've got a series of webinars lined up, as well as a quiz at 4 o'clock. So if you're free at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, 4 to 5, we're going to do a bit of a pub quiz, grab a drink, bring your own alcohol or drink of choice. Join in. Cool. That's it from me. Thank you very much, Mike. And thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
All right. Cheers. Bye.
Oh, you need to stop recording, please, Mike, at the bottom.
Oh, okay. End for all?
No, the next to the screen share, there'll be a record bit. I'll say, unless you want to get, you're on a Mac, are you?
Yeah.
You can make me host.